Hello YouTube. Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, also known as Mr. Lighting in a Fan. Good evening, and I hope and pray that all of you in YouTube land and all of yours with you in YouTube land are happy and healthy and safe and well. Right now the time is approximately 8:47, actually I'm going to say 8:48 p.m. Eastern Time, and the date is Sunday, December 6th, 2020. I am very happy to present to you a wedding video. I know it is no longer November, but I committed myself and promised myself a wedding video for every day in November. Last time I checked, there are 30 days in November, so there will be 30 wedding videos from yours truly, Robert Alvarez, the Psychic Witch, also known as Mr. Lighting in a Fan. I have plenty of gorgeous lighting. The fan is not on, but right now I feel warm, so the fan is going on. The fan is on, so now I'm really Mr. Lighting in a Fan. Lighting and the fan, how you doing? So for this video, this is officially Wedding Day 26, Being in Tune with the Moon. Part 1, which was Wedding Day 25, is the subtitle. Being in Tune with the Moon Part 1 is the subtitle of my Many Moons 2021 Lunar Planner video. But I'm going to take it down a little bit more. So here's the thing about the moon. The moon is magical, the moon is mysterious, the moon is miraculous, the moon is enchanting. And you know, it is, and now keep in mind, I am aware of the astronomy about the moon, especially in relation to the sun. I know that the sun is a star, the moon is a satellite. I know that in astronomy, the sun is a star, the moon is a satellite, and the moon revolves around the sun. There is nothing that the moon can do to sustain life, to my knowledge, to the knowledge of a lot of people, I would imagine. The sun gives life, it brings life, it maintains life. So I know that I could choose to be a moon magic witch all day long, all night long, and I could just live by the moon. But the reality is that if I, from an astronomical perspective, if I lived solely by the moon, I would not be living too long. Because, you know, there is no oxygen that I know of on the moon. But from a magical perspective, we can be moon babies and moon children and moon daughters and moon sons and moon childs all day, all night, all weekend, all month, all year, all decade, all millennia long, and be okay. One of the things that I love to do is look at the moon. Looking at the moon is a great, simple, and easy way to be in tune with the moon. It really is. Because, and it's so funny, for years I've jokingly said, because in some magical traditions, when one sees that maiden crescent lunar smile in the sky, that's referred to as Diana's bow. By the time I see the moon, it's Diana's bowl, as opposed to Diana's bow, because it's no longer, it's like, you know, so it's like, the bow became a bowl. But I love looking at the moon. And I can honestly say that I love all of her phases. I don't just love looking at her when she's full, or whether it's the night before the full moon, the night of a full moon, or the night after a full moon. Most of you know, and I certainly know, that I am not a morning person. But I know that from an astrological perspective and an astronomical perspective, the night after a full moon, the moon rises later in the sky. That's one of the reasons why a few days after the full moon, we can see the moon as early as or as late as 6 in the morning on some days, depending upon where you are. Because especially even after, you know, a few days after the moon was full. But looking at the moon is one of the simplest and yet an incredibly powerful way to be in tune with the moon. And then also ask yourself, you know, how am I feeling? You know, a great way to be more aware of the moon's transit in the sun, through the zodiac, is to pay attention to how one feels in the morning and in the evening. Like what emotion is currently operating in and around you. And the moon will give you a very good insight as to what's happening And that's one of the things that's always fascinating, because remember, from an astronomical perspective, the moon is physically closer to us than the sun, than Mars, Venus, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, etc. And remember, in Western astrology, the sun and the moon are planets. The sun and the moon were called luminaries by the ancients. And it is interesting to note that of all the planets in Western astrology, the only two that do not retrograde are the sun and the moon. Something to think about. So, the fact of the matter is that being in tune with the moon also helps guide you. You know, have you noticed that some days, after you've looked at the moon, you have a thought? And the thought could be anything. The thought could be, you know, I really need to do this more often. Or, I really need to make that change. Or it could be like, you know what, it's time to do this. That is an after effect of tuning into the moon. That is the afterword of like, okay, I'm going to tune into the moon. I'm going to reattune myself to the moon, and this is what's going to happen. And it never ceases to amaze me how sometimes all one needs, I don't know about you, but I know for me personally, there were times when I went so long without seeing the moon. You know, when I was in a hospital last year for such a long time, I went so much time without seeing the moon. And I will tell you, it is interesting to note that one of my last hospitalizations in 2019 was the same date as a full moon. It was so funny because I remember, you know, my personal goddess happens to be a moon goddess, a full moon goddess, and her name is Osset, but she is more commonly known as Isis. And my divine consort's personal goddess is Selene, the Greek goddess of the full moon. And I remember a few days before, I knew what I needed to do to make sure that I was discharged that following Monday. And yes, it was a day of the moon on a full moon. That full moon in June of last year. And I remember thinking, you know what, of course, these two goddesses, these two beloved of full moon goddesses were going to make sure that I was finally back home. And that's exactly what happened. And I will tell you right now, it was such a bright blessing, it was such a magical miracle, it really was. And I cannot begin to tell you how beautiful and how breathtaking and how moving it was to me to finally be back home on the night of a full moon. I didn't have the strength to do much, but I had the strength to just bask in being at home, bask in being back in my own bed, and I was feeling a whole lot of emotions, which a full moon usually does. It's like any emotion you've been avoiding dealing with, on the night of a full moon, you're dealing with it. It's like, bitch, you're dealing with it, and that's all there is to it. But I will tell you right now, being in tune with the moon makes a big difference in the life of a witch, with regards to ritual work, with regards to spellcraft, with regards to being this wild moon child. It helps, it guides, it heals, it comforts. Just like Mother Moon, or Lady Luna, or Croning Moon, whatever term you prefer, is guiding and comforting and healing and sustaining and nourishing and nurturing and at times all-enveloping, all-encompassing. YouTube, as always, thank you so much for honoring who I am and what I do. Thank you so much for all the likes, all the comments, all the shares, all the subscriptions to my YouTube channel. Thank you to those of you who have been scheduling your sessions. This December 2020 is turning out to be especially abundantly full, and I am very, very happy about it. I am very thrilled about it, and I am looking forward to what the next few months have in store, and I am looking forward to connecting ever more deeply to Mother Moon. Good night, and stay tuned for the next video.